As you can see, there are many different reasons as to why evil might exist. It's still perfectly logical and acceptable to believe in a powerful and loving God in spite of the fact that evil does exist. Let's look at some of those possible explanations that the Khan Academy videos did not go into a great deal of explanation on in the next few minutes. As we go through these possibilities, keep in mind these are just simply that, possible explanations as to why God allows evil. Possibility number one, good actually requires evil. God wants human beings to be able to see the distinction between good and evil, and thus he allows good and evil to both exist. A world in which there absolutely was no pain, no differentiation between good and evil, between good, better, and best. A world in which there is no distinction between not good, worse, and worst would not be a world worth living in. And so good and evil are required for life as it's best to live to exist. One way of discussing this would be like being born into a room where everything was one color. Supposing you're born into a room where everything that you see is blue, including yourself. Your own skin is blue. There's really no differentiation between blue and darker blue. It's just blue. And as lovely as a color as blue is, one would have no appreciation for the loveliness of the color blue unless one could also see the color red, the color orange, pink, white, black, brown, all the colors. And so God allows evil so that we are able to see this differentiation. Possibility two. God doesn't allow evil so much as simply evil is wherever God is not. Admittedly, there are plenty of theological problems with this, but keep in mind that we're talking about just possibilities here. God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-loving, but simply he is not omnipresent. Now this almost seems silly, but there are many Christians, especially in American evangelicalism, who will say that hell is simply the absence of God. Additionally, you might say on this planet, when evil things are happening, that is where God is absent and perhaps another evil presence is present. Speaking of that evil presence, potential number three, the devil did it. Look, God does what God does, and the devil does what the devil does. I mean, just look at him behind me here. Here he is, chomping on an apple, actually mostly just offering it to human beings so that they can bring sin upon themselves. And it's because of this that we have the natural evils and the human-made evils that emerge. The devil did it. Then again, you might wonder, well, why does God allow for the devil to exist? Well, that's a good question. But regardless, if the devil does have power and does have free will, just as human beings may have free will, then that is a place where God does not have complete control. God is the parent, we are the children, and every child needs vaccinated, unless you're in the state of Oregon and you somehow think that vaccinations are evil. And so the evil that we experience in this world is simply preparing us to better enjoy eternity. So you have to look at the evil now more like the poke in the arm. It doesn't feel great, but in the long run, don't worry about it. It's going to be little. You're not going to care. Okay, so not a great argument, I admit, but you know, it's out there. Just want you to know it. This is one that I hear Christians use all the time, and I kind of want to punch them. Hey, the evil that you are experiencing now will produce greater good in the long run. Sometime you'll look back at the horrible things that have happened, and you'll see how God is using all the pain and evil in your life for your good. Yeah, well, that might happen for some people, but other people, you know, like they get cancer and it's miserable for them and everyone watches them slowly die and then they're dead. So there's that. But regardless, you could say that potentially anyway, some evil results in good in the long run. And so that's why that evil is allowed to exist. Another possibility is free will. You have a choice. You can choose Jesus or you can reject Jesus. And if you reject Jesus, hell. And if you choose Jesus, heaven. So free will is the mechanism by which we achieve salvation. It could be more than simply, do you choose to believe in Jesus or not? It might be along the lines of allowing human beings free will is good in and of itself. That is, it's not only, or it's not at all, because it's how we get into a relationship with God, but rather human beings with free will are human beings that are able to be creative And creativity is at its fundamental an essential thing that makes life, the life that we live, worth living. Life as we know it could not possibly exist. And what I mean by that is the good parts of life could not possibly exist because it's fundamentally bound to our ability to choose freely, to create freely, to have our own wills. This next one I think is really interesting, and it could be possibly correct. The problem of evil presupposes that human beings deserve the good. Human beings do not. They deserve pain, suffering, and death because of sin. Every human being is guilty of sin and are personally culpable. They all deserve God's wrath, and God is just. And rather than wondering why a good God allows evil, maybe we really ought to be asking the question, how can a just God allow so much goodness and happiness when that's the opposite of what we actually deserve? And so you see, it's really not a problem of evil at all, but a problem of good. My guess is some of you absolutely despised that last one, but I think it's really quite interesting. So there you have a multiple number of possibilities as to why evil is allowed to exist with a God who is good and powerful in charge. Okay, next time, an even more difficult problem, the problem of hell. Is hell really a problem? Just ask anyone who's there. On second thought, that's not a good idea.